So we're here to talk about anxiety. I was mentioning it's kind of a heavy topic, but you know, when you get a bunch of people that do this work together, I don't think we make anything heavy. I think the whole thing is about lightening up these topics. And I think all, if not most, if not all of you were on last month's on sadness, when sadness turns to depression. I think most of you were. Judy, were you there too? Yeah.
I wasn't there, but I
and I've got it. Yeah, I've got it on the YouTube now. The slightly edited version. But the interesting thing is that depression and anxiety very often, I'm sure you all know, go hand in hand. If someone has one, it's very common that they're going to have the other at some point, if not, having them together. So I know that you are all hypnotists / hypnotherapists / hypnosis counselor, whatever words they're using all over the world now for all these things. What does the NGH say they should call themselves? Although my certificate from them says certified hypnotherapist, they recommend consulting hypnotist. That's what it is. The brain is still working. Yes. At least last I heard, that's what they recommended. And some people use that, and it isn't important. When I used to give talks early on in my career, I really loved educating people about the word hypnosis. I wanted to use that term and hypnotherapy and, tell people what it was. But when I would give talks to different places, I would say, you can call it hypnosis, you can call it meditation, you can call it guided imagery, you can call it George if you want. And I started saying things like that. And one lady raised her hand in this talk I was giving, and she said, I don't want to call it George, that's my ex-husband. And I'm like, well, don't call it George then. It was like a joke. So don't take me seriously when I say that. But, the point is, it was around before Braid, I think it was, who coined the term hypnosis. Hypnosis was around way before that, right? So it really isn't important, although I think it's important that we, being credible practitioners, educate the public and the medical community in what we do so that they can respect that term. I feel like part of my job, and hopefully you take that task seriously too. So since there's only a few of us, you all know each other, sort of, you've met. Quickly, just your name, where you're here from, and what, if you're a certified hypnotist, hypnotherapist, whatever, therapist of the other kind, just a little, 3 sentences or so. Judy, you were here first, so you can go first.
Judy Costantino, I'm from New Jersey. And I've been a hypnotist for many, many years, and I did the medical class with Patty.
Very good. New Jersey. Jackie, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Jackie Young. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, where we cannot call ourselves hypnotherapists. I'm a hypnotist, and my business name is Open Minds Hypnosis.
Nice. I like that. Open mind. And Jessica.
I am Jessica Hansen from Minnesota. I am also a certified instructor in Hypnosis Act, and I just call myself a hypnotherapist.
You say that so just often. It's like, it's easy. Yeah, I love it. Jen?
I'm Jennifer, and I am in Cairns, Australia, and I'm still relatively new. This is only my 2nd year, so I'm on a lot of the Zoom calls because I'm just soaking up as much as I can, and have recently just had 2 people come in for anxiety this week. So this is just perfect to
very nice. Very nice. Very good. Yeah. And Jen, you're saying 2 years. I still feel like a newbie. I say this all the time, and I go to everything I can. I just took Michael Watson's board certified hypnotist training, and I've been board certified for 30 years by a different group, but I love Michael Watson, and I looked and I had that time available, and I said, I want to do this weekend, because to me it's fun. And it was a lot of things that he did when he used to come to Palm Harbor to train for my early classes before I was, really experienced as a trainer. And it's always, even though it's the same things that I've seen him do before, there's always something new. And I got to work with some other wonderful people that were on that training. So, we're hopefully all perpetual students, as well as we are teachers. We teach our clients, right? We're teaching our clients how to do self-hypnosis, how to do this for themselves, because they're doing it anyway. So, and I always say my goal is that you never have to come back and see me again. And they go, oh, but can I? And I go, oh, yeah. But, you know, the point is, it's not like the old style of psychotherapy where, you know, I'm going to hook you for the next 15, 20 years, you know, come back every week and we'll mull over again all of your past woes
Trauma.
and drama. So that's not what we do, is it? We want to empower them so they can go off and have a wonderful life and do it for themselves. And then a lot of people like me, you know, and like I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, we end up becoming hypnotists without necessarily having that in the plan originally. So there you go. It's kind of a nice addiction. So this is also, as you know, one CEU. For all of my classes are good for CEUs. I don't know of any organization that doesn't accept them, because I'm a trainer for IACT, IMDHA, IHF, Tebbets, Parts Therapy Foundation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, because I'm always taking trainings. And so one CEU for this, and most of you are, I think you're all members of IACT and or IMDHA, yes? Mm-hmm. And like I said, even other organizations accept it. So you usually go on there and it's an honor system, although every once in a while I get a call and they say, was so-and-so in this class? And I say, oh, yes, she was, because, you know, I keep track. So IACT, this is also a chapter meeting for IACT and Hypnosis Education Association, which is a Florida-based not-for-profit hypnosis educational group. And now we're doing online things because after COVID, we had a lot of people taking part in some of our things that weren't in the area. So we started, between Michael Watson and myself, we've added about 4 or 5 events a year online so that people that can't make it maybe to the live conference, they're still getting their money's worth because it's very inexpensive to be a member. So we're doing members only online things. The first person I secured for what I termed the Living Legends series was Dave Ellman's son. What's his name? I'm so embarrassed. Larry Ellman. He was our first person. And I thought, you know what? Some of us are getting up there in years. And I thought, there's a lot of great people. And the next one, by the way, is going to be really, really special. And that one is going to be worth the price of admission for the whole year. So anyway, so we're doing those things. And we're doing what we call Hypnosis Hangouts. The next one is going to be the last day of this month. I think it's the 31st. And that one then is for members only as well. We do 2 or 3 a year now. And Michael and myself host it. The theme this time is going to be the language of hypnosis. So of course, Michael Watson, you know, he's my NLP guru. So it's going to be good. And we will bounce off each other and everybody else is invited to participate as well. So IACT, the upcoming events for them, the Galaxy of Stars, I guess, is the next thing coming up. September 10th and 11th. Is coming up just real quick here. I already know some people that are going to be taking that. There's about 6 or 7 presenters over a 2-day span. You can go to iact.org, of course, and look up what that's about. Michael Watson's going to be doing the Certified Stress Management Consultant. We were talking about anxiety tonight, so that might be something you'd like to have in your little repertoire of certifications. And that is going to be October 1st and 2nd of this year. And then the Hypno Expo is already planned for 2023. That's going to be May 19th through 21st. And I will be doing the medical hypnotherapy specialty training, either pre or post. They haven't set that up yet. HEA, next conference is in Orlando, Florida, if you're anywhere close that you could come to that. November 12th and 13th. And you can get the information for that on heahypnosis.com. So that's enough about the chapter meeting. That's our chapter meeting. So that's finished now. So let's talk about anxiety. You're all working with people with anxiety already. You're already working with that, I'm guessing, pretty much. Because you know what? Anytime somebody comes to you for anything, if they're coming to a hypnotist, whatever they're coming to you for, they are stressed out about it at the very least in order to come to a hypnotist. You know, we're not normally the first choice. Unfortunately, sometimes maybe, but you know, if it's smoking or something they think of right away. But for anxiety, now that is a medical term. So if somebody calls me and says, I have anxiety, they see it on TV, they hear it around, all their friends have it, you know, and they hear about all the meds on TV being advertised. So people will self-describe themselves as someone who has anxiety, just like depression, things. It is a medical term. So the first thing, of course, we're all going to do is say, who diagnosed you? Who's treating you for that? And sometimes it gets, a lot of times it'll get a surprised response like, well, nobody. And then I need to ask more questions, right? We have to make sure with our best judgment, is this just stress? Or, you know, like they had a bad breakup with a significant other, you know, a month ago, and they're kind of upset about it still? Or is it long-term anxiety or generalized anxiety? There's all these clinical terms that we don't necessarily need to know all of the delineations of the different types of anxiety. What we do need to know and make our best judgment about is if this person has had it a little bit longer term and seems like it's a little bit of a deeper thing than just, like I said, something, just one little thing that happened recently that they're upset about. Or their boss is annoying them at work and they're stressed out about those kind of things. So we, again, have to make our best judgment. So definitely doctor's referral, I think all over the world, pretty much it's required. And even if it wasn't, I would still get one because it's a good way to meet the medical professionals that treat anxiety. And when they start doing better by seeing you in addition to what they're already doing, you know, it can start to get you some other referrals. And that's a nice thing. I just finished a series of sessions with someone who was referred by someone who was treating them for anxiety. And I mean, the first thing, I'm sure you've all heard this a million times, first thing she said in the second session when she came in, because I always set aside the first 5 to 10 minutes. I say, when you come back, Nick, and I set it up when they leave, I say, when you come back each session, we're going to start with anything and everything you notice that's in the right direction or that's improved, even if it's just a teeny bit improved, because you want to build on that. You want them, first of all, to recognize it, because we know what you focus on amplifies. So I want them to get a lot of attention, a lot of recognition, and a lot of thought energy to the things that are actually improving. And that, of course, will allow them to be thinking of those things more. So we start with that. And the first thing she said, of course, was, I slept better after our session last week than I ever have in my entire life, right? So you've all heard these things. We know that that's one of the first benefits of doing a hypnosis session with someone. And that's why I do, just like with depression, I really believe in that long progressive relaxation. Most people with anxiety, they, at the very least, haven't relaxed in a long time. And at the most, maybe have never learned how to totally relax. You know, a lot of people breathe shallowly and they just really never learn. So there's a lot of things we can do with anxiety to help condition, because anxiety is a conditioned response. Would you all agree with that? Yeah, it's a conditioned response. It takes a certain thought process, a certain strategy of thoughts to, and then of course you build up belief systems and expectations and those kind of things around that. But it takes a certain thought process to start to extend the length of being stressed to the point where it turns into anxiety. And since it is a conditioned response, we want to start interrupting patterns. And that's what we do, I believe, with everything in that first session, well, in every session, but in that initial interview, we can start interrupting patterns and start in that process. You know, I use that as an opportunity to start explaining to them what we're doing, how hypnosis works, how their mind functions. And the other part of it is, for some people, really, it helps more than others, but I always bring in some research, some very valid, credible research to explain to them. And sometimes I'll hand them an article. And I'm not going to hand them an article from a hypnosis, usually from a hypnosis group. I'm going to hand them an article from Mayo Clinic, or from Johns Hopkins, or from the National Institutes of Health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because people know those names and they have a long-term respect. And when you say, look, they say, and I'm going to show you a couple, they're easy to find now. When I first started teaching, I would search this stuff out and people say, I've never seen that. Now it's easy, you can go online, but it's still a lot you got to sift through, right? So I'm going to show you a few little things that to me are succinct and short, because I don't want to give my clients a book to read necessarily. You know, sometimes they'll read a book, but you know, something short and sweet that I can just introduce in order to start gaining that sense of credibility, that sense of setting up a belief system that, wow, this is based in science and there's research on it. And these credible universities and research study groups actually have, qualified hypnosis for using it for anxiety. So I'm going to show you a couple things, but I think that's important to introduce to the client in that first initial interview. Well, first of all, let me show you this first, actually. And this is something I found that I didn't necessarily intend to show you, but I thought this was interesting to me. This was, I think, just from within the last year or so, this was posted. These are statistics. Look at these numbers. This is why we should never run out of clients. 15 million American adults have social anxiety disorders. Now that's just in America. I'm sure there's stats out there about the whole world, which is probably even more mind-boggling. 36% of people with social anxiety disorder report symptoms for 10 plus years before they started to seek help. Now that 36% is part of this 18% statistic here, that is the percent of people affected by anxiety disorders in the United States, which it states is the most common mental illness. So people don't realize when they're diagnosed by a medical professional as having, clinical anxiety and they're taking medications, a lot of people are not aware that they now are forever going to have that on their record, that they have been diagnosed with a mental illness. People don't realize that because they think, well, doesn't everybody have anxiety? It seems that way to some people. Isn't everybody got, antidepressants now and anti-anxiety meds? So anyway, 18% that are affected by it, and it's the most common. And then 36% of them wait 10 or more years before they even go looking for help. And probably you could add a little bit of time to that before they end up in our office, right? Yeah, 13 years old is the typical age for the onset of social anxiety disorders. That sounds really young, doesn't it? 13 years old. Anxiety disorders cost the United States alone almost a third of the country's 148 billion total mental health bill each year. So a third of what the United States spends on mental health type of disorders, a full third of those is for anxiety. So that's how common it is. Now, we as hypnotherapists, I can't get involved and don't want to and definitely shouldn't with the medicines that the people that are referred to me are taking. Now, I love it when my client says, I'm seeing this doctor, I've been on these meds for a while and they've changed it to another one and they got a different one and blah, blah, blah. But my goal is to get off them completely. I can support that, but I can't encourage it. I can't submit it as my idea or anything. You don't want to do that because we can't step on the toes of the practitioner that's treating them. But between you all and me and most of the doctors that I know and respect and mental health professionals, these kinds of drugs are overdiagnosed. People are overdiagnosed and overused. They're overusing these medications. They're meant, just like with the depression ones, they're meant to be short-term to overcome a space of time of crisis. They're not meant to be for the rest of your life. And some medical professionals will come right out and tell people, you're going to have to be on this for the rest of your life. Talk about hypnosis, right? That's what do we call it? Prestige suggestions, right? And people believe it, but they'll still come to us and say, I really don't want to be on this the rest of my life. And I have a sense, it doesn't make me feel like normal. And I really don't think I'm going to need it. So I can work with them on that, but I can't, interfere. We can't interfere with what the doctor has diagnosed, obviously, or what they're prescribing for them. I just want to hear from you since it's a small group here. Have any of you ever had an issue or any kind of problem getting referrals for anxiety from the person's medical professional? What's been any of your experience you want to share about that? So I don't seem to have a problem with it. I hear other people sometimes say they do. And then when I hear them talk about what they do, I think maybe they're actually manifesting some of that. I don't expect it. And I'm always surprised if somebody says, you know, my doctor doesn't really, a couple times, it's only happened to very, very less than a handful of times that they'll say, you know, I went to them and they said they didn't really feel comfortable referring me. And then the next thing always has been, but I wasn't happy with them anyway, so I'm going to change doctors, you know. Now I can't say that, but it's never, you know, because doctors want to send them for what they want. Most doctors, even if they aren't real sure about hypnosis, if the patient wants it, they want to make the patient happy. And they're probably going to say, you know, well, I don't know about that, but yeah, okay, you know, might go ahead and give it a shot. And then voila, things start to happen. But yeah, I've never had a problem with referrals, and it's a great way, again, to interact with doctors and get more referrals. The National Institutes of Health, right? Everybody knows what that is. Can you all see that? Yeah. And this is from the National Institutes of Health National Library of Medicine. And I don't think I've come across this particular part of the NIH before. It says the National Center for Biotechnology Information. And this particular article by W.H. Smith from the Bull Menninger Clinic. Most people have heard of the Menninger Clinic. And it talks about hypnosis in the treatment of anxiety. I like this little piece. I found it recently, and I know I'll be using it because it's short and sweet. This is a good one to give to the doctors that you'd like to get referrals from, you know, because they're going to go, oh, NIH, oh, really? Okay. And this is the abstract, so they can go look up the, you know, these big long research projects, which nobody's going to take the time to read anyway. It says hypnotherapy and training in self-hypnosis can help persons achieve remarkable success in alleviating anxiety. See, I like ones that say it like that. That's not just saying it might help, you know, it might help a little. It's remarkable success, not only in anxiety disorders, but also any problem involving anxiety. The author, this gentleman that wrote this, he describes in this research project the role of hypnosis in treatment of several disorders and provides clinical examples illustrating treatment of generalized anxiety, phobias, which we know it works great for, and post-traumatic stress disorders. That's another area of anxiety that we can specialize in. He concludes that because hypnosis exploits the intimate connection between mind and body, it provides relief through improved self-regulation and also beneficially affects cognition and the experience of self-mastery. I love that paragraph, that sentence. That says it all of what we do, is that we empower our clients, and it's what a beautiful, you know, exploits the intimate connection between. I just love the way that's written. So I know I'm going to be using this with a lot of people because it's short. Like I said, they'll actually look at it and they'll go, oh, wow, that sounds pretty darn good. You know, remarkable success. So there's a nice one. And again, as usual, any of these things that you want, just let me know, send me an email, and I will send them to you. The Mayo Clinic is one of our best friends. And there was, years ago, I haven't looked lately, but years ago, they had a whole page on their website. And this was earlier on in my career as a hypnotherapist. And the title on the page on their website was, why choose the Mayo Clinic? And the entire page was about, you should choose the Mayo Clinic because we incorporate hypnosis. And I was like, woohoo, that was so cool. And like I said, I haven't looked at it lately to see if that's still there, but it was really a neato thing. So the Mayo Clinic's approach is teamwork, right? That's one of their main things. Specialists at Mayo Clinic recognize that many complementary and alternative medical treatments, such as the first one they mentioned, hypnosis, like I said, they're our best friend, can help promote physical, mental, and spiritual wellness. Mayo specialists are skilled at integrating hypnosis into your overall treatment plan, if appropriate. Mayo Clinic offers hypnosis as a psychological and medical therapy to help relieve symptoms of many diseases and conditions such as stress, anxiety, insomnia, or pain. Hypnosis can also reduce anxiety before a procedure or surgery. And we all know that, right? Nice little short piece. Again, short and sweet. You can compile like 2 or 3 different little things. I like to do that for doctors and just put, here's what the Mayo Clinic says, here's what Johns Hopkins says, here's what the Anderson Cancer Center said, whatever it is, you know, it's easy to find these things. the other thing I wanted to show you is an excerpt from a chapter of a book that someday will get finished that I was supposed to be working on with Dr. Rosen. Someday. I may have to finish it by myself, frankly. Anyway, this is a chapter dealing with anxiety relief, reducing anxiety, panic attacks, fears, and phobias. They're all related, right? If somebody has anxiety, it's because they're afraid of something. They might be afraid of themselves, by the way. That might be what it turns out the fear is, of just themselves. So, and again, we don't need to say this to our clients. We can know this and know what approach to take and what direction to take for the sessions. And we get that through that interview, that all important initial interview where we ask questions and listen to the client. I had an experience with someone that I was mentioning that I've been working with for a few weeks now, who ended up going to a new person. I won't say what kind of complementary therapy, and came back to me after seeing this person a couple times and said, they told me I needed to ask you about something because they think that I'm holding trauma from my ex-husband. And I just wanted, my hair stood on end, and I just, in my head, I was doing this. I was going, no, don't do that to people. And so now they had her the whole time since they had seen this person thinking about this. And they even said, and that's all I've been thinking about. And I'm like, oh, great. All the work we did, and that's what now they're thinking about. So it's just, I don't think it's useful to delve deeply into every little minute detail of every trauma and drama and bad experience they've had. And all I could think of was, I've worked with this person several times, and that hasn't come through. So I asked a very important question at that point. I said, so what did you think or feel when they said that to you? And what do you think they said? I bet you can all guess. They said, I figured I'd pass that years ago, So guess what? If they feel like and think that they did, why on earth would you dig that back up and start doing it again? And I know they had mentioned even some of that to me, but it was so brief. And if you watch the client, if it's not traumatizing them when they talk about it, I just write that off as part of the history that, maybe even gave them some resources for whatever that, is currently happening. But you don't want to implant. That's called leading the client. And we don't do that, but a lot of medical professionals do. We've all had that happen. I went to a person and they said I need to do past life regression because this must have happened to me in a past life. And I'm like, okay, lots of work to do then. So this in this chapter, and I will send you this if you like, but basically, and you all know that this is just things we already know. Stress generally, according to most of the books and things that you can read about stress, has 3 stages. And if it's allowed, again, it starts as stress a lot of times. Sometimes it's an impactful, profound trauma, obviously, but a lot of times it's a slow buildup as well. And it talks about if it's allowed to go to stage 2 or 3, that's when the immune system becomes so weak that then they start to have the physical problems. It starts to manifest in some physical problems. And usually by the time we see someone with anxiety, yes, they've got several usually physical manifestations, at the very least, that are being made worse. They're being exacerbated by the anxiety. So our approach is hopefully to find out what's triggering it right now. What's happening now? What is it? How is it interfering with your quality of life now? And breathing and relaxation, again, this is good for every client. And people with anxiety, it's even perhaps more essential to start incorporating that, to get them in that first session to realize they can teach them some breathing exercises. Like I said, most people really don't know how to breathe. And you can tell by the way they talk. Because if they talk from their nose like this and they talk like that, and you don't see you don't see them breathing deeply, you know that they're not getting that oxygen deeply into their body or their brain in order to, and that helps us to gain control when we get that oxygen going. And hopefully you practice these things too for your own voice, because there's nothing more annoying to me than a nasal voice. It's just not really relaxing. If you ever met a hypnotist and they talk like that, and they just kind of, talk very shallow breathing kind of. It's not relaxing to me anyway. So you can practice it too, but relaxation techniques. And again, we're teaching them breathing and relaxation. We can do all of that in the pre-talk for each session. And as they're learning those things, that can be a catalyst to take them into the deeper levels of hypnosis, can it? You can say, now that I've shown you how to do that, show me what you just learned. And then you can just piggyback on that and take them to a deeper level. Now they're starting to learn how to do self-hypnosis. They're learning, oh, I can do this. So you're teaching them how to create a hypnotic state for themselves, because isn't that what it is? And we want them to know you're the one that's doing this. Mental rehearsals are fabulous for people that have anxiety. If there's certain situational anxiety, things like every time I go in the grocery store or I go anywhere in public where there are a lot of people or something, if it's those kinds of social anxiety, you can do little mental rehearsals with them. The first thing I usually do is say, how would you like to be when you're in that situation? I don't transpose what my opinion is about what they should be. I ask them, I say, how would you like to be different than what you're telling me you're experiencing now? And they might say something like, I want to be the way I used to be. And then you can have them describe that. That's fine. Or they might just say, I'd just love to be able to be around people and just feel calm. Not be afraid. They'll tell you all the things they don't want to do first, of course. And then we can help them to reframe that. Well, if you're not afraid, what would you be? I'd feel safe. I'd be calm. And safety, by the way, with people with anxiety is a big one. Because remember, it's got a lot to do with fear. Fear is a big element, a component of anxiety. Because it's all about how they're thinking about that situation. And it's scary. Because they know what's going to happen. Their heart's going to start pounding. They're going to freak out. They're going to have a panic attack, whatever it is. They've had the experience, and now it's embedded in their memory, and it keeps replicating because their mind keeps fearing it, which creates more anxiety, and then it's a self-fulfilling, perpetual process. So we can help them do just a minute. Once we teach them that they can relax with us, get that nice rapport. Now, just, even in the pre-talk, you can have them do a little mental rehearsal. Oh, you want to feel safe and calm. Where do you feel safe and calm? You can have them, get into a state by remembering someplace where they feel calm and safe, right? Access that state, doesn't matter what the context is. And then I always start teaching them what I've come to call pivotal response conditioning. And it's based in the anchor trigger neurolinguistics, in that idea, but I take it to a next level. Also, by the way, mindfulness kind of has the first step. They have a nice first step to people getting control. It's about, being in the moment, being in the now, and realizing what you're experiencing. And I think that's nice, except a lot of the people that I've seen that have anxiety that have been taught to do that, they just end up being in the anxiety and recognizing it and being there. They don't know what to do, right? So to me, being hypnotists, we can teach them to interrupt that pattern and to bring in some other elements. And that's where those mental rehearsals can be nice. We can access and anchor in resource states, safe states, calm states, focused states where they felt in control, right? And then we can transpose that onto the situation where they feel anxious in the recent past or in the past 20 years or whatever it's been. So that's a nice thing to teach them. I usually incorporate a word or a symbol. So if I take someone to that place where they felt perfectly safe and calm, if that's what they're looking for, and once I get them there and get all the submodalities, get the details, that's all that means, and get them to describe it, tell me more about it, tell them, what do you see, what do you hear, what do you feel, what do you sense, all of that. And then amp it up. I usually have an intensity dial, I think you've heard me talk about before. Crank it up, make yourself feel even more safe. All of those elements make them even more wonderfully calm and safe. And then I use an anchor and I'll say, is there a symbol or a word that represents how you feel right now? Because you want them to be associated into the state. You don't want them just to remember it. When you're doing a regression, which is what this is, to something positive, you obviously want them to be in the middle of it. You want them to feel it. That's what makes it powerful. And then usually they'll have a word or a symbol. It might be an animal. It might be a color. It might be, usually it's either an animal or a symbol. I've had people say it's an angel, you know, an angel comes to me, or a beautiful rose. I don't know, it can be anything, right? But if it resonates with them, I'm going to run with that. And I always kind of say too, you know, if something else comes to you later, you know, you can always change this and your mind will know. Just to take everything that you incorporated with this word or this symbol can now be part of this other thing that you just changed, because you're in control of your mind. That's what we're teaching them. So we're teaching them how to choose a different, more appropriate response. And the same way they conditioned in, like Pavlov's dogs, right? That, like I said, the anxiety had to be conditioned in. It had to be thought about in a certain way to make it happen again and again and again and become a long-term problem. So we're going to start interrupting those processes, those patterns, and teach them how to interrupt it when we're not with them. And to the next step of the pivotal response conditioning is after they hit pause and hit their, I like to give them fingers and thumbs together and a breath so they get some oxygen going. And in that next exhale, as soon as they exhale, to have that word, that symbol, something else, to put their mind on something pleasant. And just for an instant, it's just an instant pattern interrupt, the way that I teach it. So you're teaching the mind-body connection, just like that National Institute of Health thing said. We're teaching them how to use that mind-body connection in that wonderful way that only hypnotists really seem to know how to do efficiently, in my opinion. And in my world, that's the one that really counts. So we're taking advantage of that human behavior, the natural phenomenon that's called conditioned response. It's a natural thing. So we're teaching them how to use that. So I have a case history in here for stage fright. It was a real experience with a client that I had many, many years ago. I know it was many years ago because I was using the term subconscious. I think somewhere in here I spotted that, unless I changed it, because I haven't used that term in many years. I use unconscious now. It's just a habit. Means the same thing. And let's see here. Talked about getting a referral. And the reason we get the referral is because if it's truly clinical anxiety, they got to rule out any physical cause for the anxiety. Now, a lot of times there is physical cause for, they're anxious because they got cancer. They're anxious because they got this heart condition that has been in treatment for a while. You know, it very often is, by the time they come to us, linked to a physical. And that's another reason why we get that referral. And that's going to be part of the key, part of the clues that we get from them, so that we kind of know there's a history of this. And there was a place where this wasn't a problem. And there was something that kicked it off. We like to call it initial sensitizing event or root cause. Many times it started, the seeds, I say, were planted before age 5, 6, 7. Many times, almost every time. Not always, but almost every time. So we can do regret. We're always going to do some regression. But again, if you're doing regression to find root cause or initial sensitizing event for anxiety, you definitely want to do it from an extremely safe, protected, pleasant experience and dissociated, because hypnotists don't put people back in the trauma. We just don't do that. And unfortunately, there are still people out there that do that. So let's see here. Yeah, we get clues through our interview. And what we can do once we've uncovered what the root cause is in a safe, dissociated way, now we can help them to reframe the situation, to change their perspective. That's why we do it dissociated, because if they're looking at it from a distance, it's easier to think differently about it, right? They don't have those emotions right in the middle of their experience. So they can, and we can encourage them with our hypnotic language to find a new meaning, to develop a new belief system about that experience, and always to retain the lessons that they learned from that. Hypnotists use the term learnings like it's a noun, right? Learnings. So you know what that means. And it allows them, and the unconscious mind all on its own will start to diffuse or release or disconnect the negative emotion. That's what timeline is about. We can use timeline, we can use some other type of regression. And in my experience, I don't know what your all belief systems are at this point in your careers, and I respect whatever it is, but in my experience and where I am with all this is that I don't really care, nor do I dig to make sure that they know exactly what age it was, where they were, what was happening. I don't care, because I learned through experience that even if they don't know where it was, I'm gonna, with my language, take them back far enough, and I trust that their mind is taking care of it wherever it was. If there's something useful that that can assist them in their life now moving forward about that, to know, in my experience, they always get it. And they say, I just realized something, or I just found out something about myself, and it'll be good. It'll be something positive and like a lesson that's actually on an intellectual level able to help them in life. So I just trust their unconscious to give them that experience in whatever way is useful for them. The pivotal response I talked about. And the way that I incorporate it is, again, accessing resource states for someone that gets a lot of that has a lot of anxiety. Of course, we're always helping them reframe their language. This client that I've been working with recently was the word try. And I recorded all the sessions, and we're doing Zoom sessions. The word try was there like almost every other sentence, you know, constantly try. And we talked about it the first session. The second session, it was a little better, but I kept interrupting that pattern and saying, your unconscious mind is hearing that, and here's what it's hearing. So don't tell me what you tried this past week. Tell me what you did. And because they'll say, I tried to this, and I'll say, so how did that work? And they say, yeah. And I'll go, well, then you did it. It's not, try is not even accurate, right? So I'm really had to kind of train this person to get that out of their heads, and they're catching themselves now very well. And it is a kind of a challenge to find a different word for that word. I try to find a different word for that all the time. Sometimes I succeed and sometimes not so much. So resource states that can be accessed, mental pictures. This is something where you start finding out what are their motivators, right? The benefits. I had a lady for weight loss many years ago, and I always still remember her because she was so sweet. And when it came to what was it that she wanted this goal for? What are her motivators? She kept talking about her grandchildren. And she said, I just don't want, she says, I'm getting to the point where when I go see them, I'm going up the steps with them. I have to stop, I don't have any energy. I can't play with them the way I want to. And so that was her main motivator. And boy, did we use that. And the benefits, if, something like that, you can then get them to go, close their eyes, even in the interview, in the pre-talk, you can have them close their eyes and picture, get an image of how they want to be with those grandchildren in her case, right? And really get them to tell you how wonderful it is and what they're doing with them and how much fun and how nice it is for the grandchildren. And then anchor it, get it, grab that, and you can use that, right? That's a great motivator that can give them power as they're, going on their journey to whatever point they're wanting to get to. Borrowed traits is usually a last resort. But if someone wants to be a great presenter and they get anxiety, the script that if you wanted, I've got a script that I wrote many years ago on stage fright. It was anxiety for doing presentations, giving talks in front of a lot of people. And that's one of those where sometimes people say, I've never been able to do that. That's when you can always go to that, like I said, last resort is, do you know someone that you admire that's really good at this, that you would like to have some of those qualities? Well, yeah, I've got this other colleague of mine that when they get up and present to our board meetings, they're so confident and they look really great and they're just, relaxed and they're smiling and having a good time. So you can get that and capture those. And you all have heard of deep trance identification. I call it method acting. You can get the person to get into that, to dissociate and see that person being that with their eyes closed, see that person the way that you admire them up there on the stage. And if any of you know the John Grinder, what's it called? But it's basically where just what I'm saying, they see the person, an actor up on the stage being the way they want to be. And it can be this kind of a thing. And once they have it perfect, then you surprise them and you don't let them know this is coming ahead of time. They're dissociated, right? Then you have them step up on the stage and take the actor's place after they've rehearsed it a few times with watching the actor do it perfectly the way they want. And then they go up and they take the place of that actor. Now they're there. Now they're actually feeling it. And they've already rehearsed it a few times. It's a nice director technique. So yes, that'd come to me in a minute. It's too easy. It's called the director technique. It's John Grinder. And then you can anchor that, right? You can have them be that person, notice that person, step into their skin, or however you want to say it to them, and really feel, let that oxygen coming in your lungs, feel that confidence in your body. Notice how people are so inspired by your talk, whatever it is, and get it anchored, grab that. So that's kind of a last resort. But if they haven't ever had an experience of feeling the way they want to feel, you can always borrow those traits from someone they admire. For most stress-related problems, I do 3-session minimum. For this, usually if it's anxiety, and it really is a longer-term thing, I'm going to do 6-session prepaid because I want that much of a commitment. And I know they're going to really be on their way by the end of that. Okay, that doesn't mean that's all that they'll require, and sometimes they don't require that many, but I want to have that much of a commitment and foundation to work with, and it seems to be a good number of sessions to me. Here's just some of the things we can use, just like with almost anything else. Timeline and regression is going to be part of it. Parts therapy can be really useful for anxiety. Circle of excellence, if you're familiar with that. They call it ego strengthening. Sorry, but that's what they call it. We want to get their confidence up. We want them to feel good about themselves. That's all that means. The library technique, some of you are familiar with Dr. Preston's library technique. It's good for everything and definitely for anxiety. And of course, in every session, self-hypnosis instruction. I always get a scale. And this is good for everything too, but with anxiety, if it's long-term anxiety, when they first get there, very early in the interview, before I start getting rapport and relaxing them with my voice, I want to get them right away to give me, so where is your anxiety on a scale of 1 to 100 as it stands right now in your life? With 100 being absolutely out of control and you might have to go to the hospital, it's that bad, and 1, you don't notice it. And I get a scale. So then I can keep checking in with them, because before the end of the interview, of the pre-talk, before I even start the deeper hypnotic process, I've done a few little things with them, and I'm going to see them shifting and relaxing. And at some point, I'm going to say, I'm just curious, because by then I know they're already a little bit in hypnosis. On that scale of 1 to 100, where are you now? Right, using the hypnotic voice now, and they're gonna sometimes look confused, which is a good sign. And they're gonna go, wow, sometimes they even say, I don't know, and it's like, well, don't look for it, because it might come back. So just it's nice to know that just in these few minutes you've able to relax yourself to the point where that's not really interfering with your experience here, is it? And you can build on that then. So self-appreciation, always giving them, obviously, the acknowledgement that they're the one doing it. We are guiding them. So that's just another little piece. Did any of you know Michael Elner? Mm-hmm. If you didn't know Michael Elner, oh, what an amazing, amazing person he was. I'm sure there's still articles and background on him out on the internet. He had a whole lot to do in New York. He was in New York City for most of his career. He actually ended up moving to Florida. Seemed like everybody I knew moved to Florida after I got here. I don't know what that was about, but he ended up moving here and then he just died, about 3-4 years ago, maybe? Doesn't seem like that long ago. But I knew him most of my career. Just a beautiful person, the most generous hypnotist I think I've ever known. He's one of the people after hours at conventions would sit around, on the couches or in the bar and talk with people. And I would just soak it up. Every time I saw him, I just migrated to his little group and just listened to him talk. He was so generous. And so anyway, I found something by him that I had in my archives that I want to show you. It's a metaphor that I found. It's very short, and I can send you this if you like. anyway, in New York City, where he was for most of his career, he was there when AIDS first came about. And he found himself, he didn't really know anybody in the gay community or who had it, but he started hearing things about it. And instinctively, he thought something isn't right. Just in his gut, he just thought the way they were approaching it and treating it. And they said it's always deadly. You know, back then in those days, they said it's always deadly and it's a virus. And he said that just was counterintuitive to him, right? So he was so smart. He was such a neat guy. So he started having these groups. He didn't really do anything. He said he would sit and just be quiet. And he had these safe places where people could come and just talk about their experiences with having AIDS. And he thought it was always deadly. And he just wanted them, because people were afraid to talk about it in those days, he wanted them to have a safe place. And what he found out was there were hundreds, if not thousands of people who had AIDS for a long time and didn't die. And they started talking with each other about what they were doing. And guess what? Guess what most of it was about? That mind-body connection. And he said, without exception, the people that were surviving were not going down the road of the protocol at that time of the treatment. Without exception, the ones that survived weren't doing the treatment at the time. Now I'm just telling you what he said. But here's he talked about metaphors. And we know for healing that metaphors are great for physical, right, things that are happening with clients, because it really gets them out of their conscious mind. It just, you're just telling a story like Erickson, metaphorical. It's not about me. I'm just listening to this beautiful story. And then the unconscious mind understands all of the embedded lessons and different concepts that are in there. So here's something, and he says he used this with a wide range of people suffering from just about any kind of anxiety. And it's from Native America Healing Story. And it says, an elderly Cherokee medicine man was teaching his grandchildren about health and healing. He said to them, a fight is going on inside everyone who has a health challenge. It is a terrible fight, and it is between two wolves. One wolf promotes pain and disease. He feeds on fear, anger, envy, sorrow, regret, self-pity, guilt, and resentment. Sound familiar? And the other wolf promotes healing and well-being. He feeds on joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, and faith. I would add gratitude probably to that list. The grandchildren thought about his story for a minute, and then one of the children asked his grandfather, which wolf will win? And of course, you already see this coming. The old Cherokee smiled and simply replied, the one they feed. I get chills it's so simple. It's so simple. This could be a beautiful little piece that you could embed into the middle of a hypnosis process for someone with anxiety. And like I said, I would like to add that word gratitude. I did one of these last year, I think it was last year, on gratitude. And when I was doing research on it, I couldn't believe, I was surprised at how much medical research there is on the healing power of gratitude. And to me, a big part of gratitude for someone with anxiety, or other things too, but definitely part of what we're talking about, is for them to be grateful for themselves, for what they're doing to help themselves, to give themselves that self-appreciation. That's part of that confidence building and that ego strengthening, as it's so gently called in the therapeutic community. Somebody gave ego a bad name way back. I think it was Freud, because that's what he liked to do, give things bad name, like subconscious. That's why Michael Watson doesn't like that word. And then I hung out with him so much, I just stopped saying it. What can I tell you? Okay. So that's a nice little piece, huh? Isn't that a beautiful little story? And again, it's so simple. And I think hypnotists, sometimes we get caught up in thinking we have to have all of these complicated, intricate techniques and, ways of talking and all these things. And in reality, sometimes just the simplest thing presented in that loving, compassionate way that we do can have the most profound healing effect on the person. So it's nice to remember that, to remind ourselves of that. I would like for all of you to contribute something now about your thoughts about this, if you don't mind. Because, you know, you all do this work as well. And I'd like to hear just anything that came to you while I was speeding through this 1 hour class. Anything that's on your mind or that you think about or that you'd like to share with the rest of us. Because we're all here to learn from each other. I know I am. Judy.
Okay, and I don't know, this was very similar to what you said about the gratitude. And I don't know where I heard this from, but they said, like, before you go to sleep at night, to write down in a journal of gratitude.
Yeah.
Because when you write it down, it brings it out of the ethers, you put it on paper. But the most powerful thing is to do 10 things you're grateful about yourself, and everything else comes second. But those are the 10, and it doesn't have to be 10, it could be 3 for all you know, but those gratitude things about yourself is what carries the power. And then you're grateful for your car and all that other stuff, but it's what you're grateful for about yourself that carries the power.
That's very sweet. I think that's great. And I do love the idea of having them write down things they're grateful for, you know. And some people really love doing that. Some people might, you know, go, but it depends on how you introduce the idea, right? And if you've got rapport with your client and they're starting to see some benefits, they're going to do what you ask them to do. And it is hard for some people to appreciate themselves, you know. And Dr. Rosen talks a lot about, you know, people that have illnesses or that have anxiety, depression, these kind of things, they feel broken sometimes. That's part of the from the psychological community. That's part of the words they use. They have that sense of brokenness that they're not, you know, functioning right. And we know, hopefully, in some way, you have maybe a different way of saying it, but I always figure the person sitting in front of me is functioning perfectly. And that doesn't mean they are perfect or they're the way they want to be. It means they're functioning perfectly based on how they have thought about and been conditioned and their belief systems about what they're coming to me for. This is the perfect result of where their mind has been consciously and unconsciously, their belief systems and everything that's been going on up till now. This is the perfect manifestation of that. So since they want something different, we just have to start shifting. Like Erickson said, give them a better trance. Teach them a better trance. And I don't know if we're teaching it to them. We're kind of pulling it out of them more likely. How about you, Jackie? You got anything that's on your mind or that you'd like to share with us?
I do, and I just put it in the chat also. There's a woman named Dr. Lisa Miller. I believe that's her name. And she's got something on YouTube that talks about the fact that her movement right now is in regards to getting back to spiritualism. And the fact that we have so many adults, but really a lot of kids that are just so all over the place is because there is such a lack of connection. And because my last job was in education, I was really attuned to this because it's about, you know, it's not about teaching meditation or teaching religion as much as it is about teaching a belief in yourself and a belief in, you know, just what it means to be spiritual, not God or Jesus or, you know, not that, but about the idea that there might be something bigger, because it's that hopefulness that comes from that idea that you can have a faith in something, whether the faith is in yourself or the faith in our community or a faith in whatever it is. That, in her estimation, is one of the things that's sorely lacking. And I would absolutely support it in terms of, especially after COVID, when people weren't even able to get out and have those community connections. So her stuff is really, really exciting to kind of get into also.
Anything you'd like to add, or that any impressions you have about what you've heard, or something that came to you or that you'd like to share?
I was going to say, I didn't realize that people could, you know, were diagnosed by their doctors for anxiety. But in saying that, over here, to get government money for medical, is called the NDIS. And so I get a lot of people coming to me, and they, in their intake forms, they say, I've been diagnosed with this and this and this. And so it's really hard because they come to me labeled, and I'm like, oh, so you've got all these labels. So doctor, like you said, the prestige suggestion, the doctor has told them, and they've gone to them to get a diagnosis. So now they're coming to me going, yeah, I've got all these things. And I'm going, oh shit, now what are we gonna?
And it becomes part of their identity. Yeah, it's like it becomes part of their identity then, right? The way they're presented with those things.
And I feel like that's how the government actually, just is working.
So you can work with anxiety without a medical referral? Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, and as you say, it's an anxious situation. The anxiety came from somewhere. Yes. Yeah, it always had a start. I always say you didn't come out of the womb with this. So right.
If it started after you came out, then you can change it. That's
usually
my belief system is, And that may not be always 100% true, but that's where I start anyway. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's interesting how it is different in different places. How about you, Jessica?
So I just had a client today for anxiety, oddly enough. And I reminded myself,
it's going around.
myself during the session that, she was struggling with, she was just like kind of fighting me, but she really wanted to do it. And I just realized, I remembered, I was like, well, anxiety is trance. Like she's already in trance. So it was like, we worked on her with her language. Language was really big. And then the other one that I did today that I haven't done in a long time was the havening, where and the amazing change in her whole being when we started that. I actually just did it to her. She's older, and just doing this and giving the suggestions while doing this, you could almost watch her body physically regress.
Beautiful.
So I'm waiting for the follow-up with that one to see. And like I said, I normally never touch clients during a session, but it felt right today for her because she was just so disconnected. There was
I never thought about that. Yeah, that's a nice little process for getting people to give themselves some of that self-love. If you can get them to do it for themselves, but if you're doing it for them also with your language, like you said, that person needed that. And we got to follow our instincts. You might do something with one client that you would never do with any other client again, that you don't plan to do. It just comes up then. And when we trust our instincts, that's when magic happens. That's when magic happens. So beautiful.
Jessica, don't they say that that's probably one of the only techniques that will take out the anxiety from the nervous system?
Yeah, because
they say, the person that created it might say that.
They say.
There's a lot that do. So like I did with her, I said, where do you feel it in your body? And we changed it that way. And it was, she thought she wasn't doing it. And I told her, remember, this is just very simple. It's focused attention and you're just doing what I'm asking you. So she had a black apple of fear in her belly. And I said, I want you just to imagine taking that out. And then it was so amazing. She held it in her hand. She couldn't feel it or anything, but she was holding it in her hand. I said, well, what would you like to put back? And she said, a peach. And I said, I'm going to reach over and I'm going to put a peach in your hand. And I put a peach in her hand. She put it in her belly in that same spot. And then I asked her, so, and how is that thing that we talked about a little bit ago? And she goes, I don't even remember it right now. It's gone.
Isn't that beautiful? And you let her do it. You just ask questions. See, if we ask questions, they're going to tell us what they need.
Yeah.
And people think, well, they're not going to know what I'm talking about. But if you have rapport, like you said, it doesn't have to, people that aren't even spiritual or religious or metaphysical or anything they'll come up with things that are sometimes more bizarre than people who live in that realm. It's amazing. Once they feel comfortable and they have that freedom, their creative mind will just go, this is kind of cool. Let me really create something here. That's beautiful. I was admiring, Jen, your t-shirt.
Yeah.
It says
Aw,
choose
thank you.
happiness in a bunch of different beautiful colors. Guess what next month's free webinar is called?
Choose happiness.
Sort of. Another way of saying it, it's called something that another one of the books I've been working on for 10, 15 years, Farming the Happiness Habit,
I love it.
which is the same thing as choosing. It's like, yeah, you farm a habit by you choose it and then you choose it again, right? You get in the habit of choosing that no matter what's going on. All of a sudden it's a habit. That's how we condition ourselves. So,
You're a busy girl.
yeah. And I do have an NLP 2-day training coming up. It will be either only online, or if I have some local people, it will be online and in my office, because I have a big screen TV and I've done some classes there where I have people on online and in the office. I think, Judy, you might have been at one of those. I'm not sure. Okay, thank you so much. And again, I went over. Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Thank you,
I
Patty.
enjoyed having you here. Okay. Have a
Thank you.
great time
Good
and
night,
see you all
everybody.
soon, I hope.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.